I wanted to talk to you about Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve has always been a magical night for me. Ever since I was a little kid up until tonight, it's still a magical night. I remember on Christmas Eve, it was our family tradition that we would go to my grandmother on my mother's side of the family. Her name was Granny. So we would go to Granny's house on Christmas Eve. We would spend all day there. I think we would eat breakfast at home. We would go to Granny's, and my mom and my aunts would be working and making all kinds of food, and the kids would be down in the basement playing. I have no idea what the guys were doing. They should have been helping. And then we would have lunch, and then we would cram into her tiny little living room. All of us. All 12, probably 12 grandchildren, and we would open gifts, and it was a magical time. And also, within that tradition, because we were there all day, we would be there, then we would have leftovers for dinner. But I was raised on a farm, and we had cattle. We had cows, and the cows need to be fed. We would feed them in the morning, and we would feed them in the evening. So my dad would leave every afternoon. Oftentimes, my Uncle Denny would go with him, and they would go feed the cows, and they would come back for dinner, and it was all good. And then we would go back home, and sometimes Santa had already been to our house when we got home. It was amazing. But I also remember those early years waiting, hopefully, trying to stay up as late as I could to catch Santa, and all that anticipation of Christmas morning. And then as I got older and my grandma's grandchildren started having children, there was not room for all of us in the house. So Granny, stopped having these gatherings. So we started going to the Christmas Eve service at the Rushville United Methodist Church where I grew up. And at that time I was a teenager and I played piano, so I was playing for the Christmas Eve service. And I did that all through high school and into college. And when I would go to college, I would come home on Christmas Eve, and I would get to the church just in time for the Christmas Eve service, and they were like, "Michael, we don't have anybody to play the piano. Will you do it?" And I was like, I think they just planned on it. But every Christmas Eve, I would play up until a few years into college, and then I stopped going. But Christmas Eve was still always a magical time for me. I looked forward to Christmas time, the music, and it just seemed so magical. And so a couple of decades went by where I really wasn't practicing anything. And then on December 24th, 2009, I walked in those doors for the very first time. So Ed and I we were thinking about going to a Christmas Eve service. I had talked about how much I love Christmas Eve services, and we were trying to find a place that we could go that we felt comfortable. And Unity seemed to be that place. Ed knew Danny and Paul. It was like, I think we can go there. It is LGBTQ friendly. So we came. Our friend Tim Spradlin was singing that night. We knew him from theater. That's cool. And I sat right over there on that side, where many of you came in. You sat over there, but you moved over here. Thank you. But I sat over there on that side. We sat over there because I wanted to be able to get out pretty quickly if I needed to. And I sat there and I listened to, it was Reverend Jeanette Monterio at the time. She stood up here and she was so ethereal. It was like she was just downloading. And she was talking about the birth of the Christ within. And I'd never heard those words put together in that order before. The birth of the Christ within. We're not talking about an ancient baby. We're talking about me. We're talking about my spirituality. We're talking about an awakening of the Christ Spirit within us. And then I noticed in the bulletin it said, "Join us next Sunday for the Burning Bowl." I was like, that sounds cool. Let's go. Came back the next Sunday for the Burning Bowl. Came back the next Sunday for the White Stone ceremony. Came back the next Sunday because I wanted to see what a regular service looked like. Came back to the next Sunday, the next Sunday, the next Sunday, the next Sunday. And then in October of 2010, I became the music director. I knew I was here for a reason. I would sit out there in these seats and I would listen to this message and just soak it all in. As my heart grew and grew and grew, I knew I was here for a reason. And then in 2015, I went to One Spirit Interfaith Seminary because I was called to be a minister. But I was called to interfaith. There was something that we said here every time I came here is like there are many names for God, many paths to God, many faces of God, but only one God. I was like, I've come home. I feel that same way as well. And then I was in 2020, we didn't have a regular minister, and I was going to talk to the congregation and say, hey, I'll do it if you'll have me. But that didn't happen in 2020 because of COVID. We weren't meeting in person, so I waited a year. In 2021, I did. I asked if you'll have me, and you all said that you'll have me. So now I'm on this path towards another ordination, but through unity. But being an interfaith minister holds so much in my heart. The traditions of other faiths. Last Sunday, did we not only have our Advent candle, we lit a menorah, and we honored the winter solstice. All of these faith traditions bring us to the light. And it's all in the sacred time of holy light that we find ourselves in the heart of the dark. At the winter solstice, we honor the longest night, and we trust the ancient truth that the light is already coming back. In Hanukkah, we remember the miracle of the light that refused to go out, where one small candle, one small light becomes enough. And at Christmas, we celebrate the birth of Christ, the divine light awakening again in every willing heart. Each of these sacred moments whispers the same promise. Light is not something that we wait for. It's something that we kindle. It's born in hope. It's expressed in love. And it's revealed through compassion, courage, and quiet faith. So in this season, may this remind us that even when the world feels heavy, the light within us has not dimmed. It is steady. It is holy. Most importantly, it is enough. We are enough. As we move toward the brighter days, may we know ourselves as bearers of light, shining not by force, but by presence. Unity principle number 1 states that there is one presence, one power in the universe and in my life, and that is God, the good, omnipotent. God is the returning light at solstice. God is that spark that lights the menorah. God is that one light that shines in the darkness. God is the one light that ignites the candles that we will light when we sing Silent Night tonight. No matter where or how we celebrate this light, it's within all of us. May this light shine and live through all of us.